fell asleep in the sun after playing with the Thoth Tarot. Before sleep came, I thought about ways in which I could get to the core of each card. How could I find the essence? I began imagining that Aleister Crowley met with David Attenborough, and they went on wonderful adventures. From high above to the depths of the oceans, they were finding the essences right here on Earth. As the dream took hold, I went on my own adventures to find some of these essences. Swimming with fishes on the bottom of a river showed me a little of the Empress's domain. A look to the surface showed small fish dancing in spirals, letting me see the power of satiety. I tried drying myself by walking under cloud shadows across the plains. Crossing a puddle, I dripped upon it and saw a wonderful ripple that I imagined was the Wheel of Fortune that kept moving long after I stopped. Not long after, I bumped into a cave entrance that had me thinking of the change the Earth goes through in its erosion journey. Before I knew it, I was suspended high above a raging ocean, pondering the hanged man and how he must let go completely to plunge to the deep to mingle with death. Beams of yellow sun rays, they speak to the essence of the Ace of Swords. As I'm looking up, I step into the river again. Watching it has me engrossed in the luxury that's found in the Four of Cups. Crossing the river, I realized I stepped into a winter wonderland. The clean, pure essence of the Three of Wands lets itself be known. As night descends, a swirling vortex of stars, a dream within a dream, is how the star card makes me feel. Falling from the tree, I land on a sunny hill and ruminate on where the twin fairies from the sun card could possibly be. Consciousness rattles my mind. I realize that this dream was me going through another aeon, one in which this dream could come true. Slowly awakening, the cards surrounding me have changed. The Wild Essence Thoth Tarot was birthed from this dream, a deck from river adventures, cloud scrying, animal chasing, and dancing in the sun. The essences have been locked away in each card to remind oneself of the power and magic on Earth and in ourselves.
Hello everyone. I want to share my deck with you guys. Now, how I'm going to do this is I'm going to do it in sections, because what I ultimately want to do with this deck is be able to show it beside the Thoth Tarot. Because when I was making this deck and it all on the essence of the Thoth Tarot, getting back down to what the cards actually are underneath all of the layers, this whole process of making this deck started out as a study tool for myself, and I just ended up loving what I came up with. So I wanted to share it with you guys. Now, I've already posted a short video on it's kind of like the deck trailer, I guess you could say, with some information in it. So I will leave that up in the cards for you if you want to go and look at a little bit, on, I guess, not really the process, but a little on the deck as a whole. But today's video, I've got my trimmed study Thoth, and then I've got my untrimmed Thoth, and then I've got mine in the middle. Now, like I said, this deck that I made is called the Wild Essence Thoth, because I'm really trying to get down to the nitty gritty of what the Thoth actually means. And a lot of these are my own take, but I within using this, my own Wild Essence Thoth, I have actually used the Book of Thoth as the guidebook for this, even though I did write a guidebook for this. A little white book for this deck. So let's get into it. I don't know how much I'll actually talk about each card, but we're going to go with it. Now, one thing I want to note is that what I tried to do on the majors and on the minors, I did try to do it with the majors and the minors, but with the majors, I wanted there to be a color. I wanted there to be some matches in color, and we actually don't see that in the Fool. Duh. Had there been a picture of a black hole that was yellow that fit what I wanted the Fool, that fit what I think the Fool in the tarot, in the Thoth Tarot looks like, then I probably would have picked that image. However, when I think of the Fool in Thoth, I think of this unmanifest, the time right before the universe's creation. Not that I believe that there was ever an actual true beginning, which is where this light here comes from. And it's more so that pull back, that almost like that pull back before the arrow gets shot. And it's that void time that is the essence of the Fool card to me. So it was very important for me to have an image of light. It was very much, I was trying to get the idea of it being a void without it just being a black card. Because I have had decks before that have just had a completely black Fool card, and I actually appreciate that imagery. But for the Thoth, how Crowley actually talks about this being unmanifest, the swirl of the universe had to be present because it's the time before the swirl actually begins moving. So there's like no movement, but then there's about to be movement. So it's fluid, but I needed something to represent that specifically. And the only image I found was this. So it's just beautiful. I love that this isn't just a speck of light, that there's actually light, and it kind of looks like you're coming out of a tunnel, which I actually believe is what this imagery looks like. Now, of course, he put some occult symbolism on here, of course, but it's an emerging, right? It's almost like a birth, but it's that time before the birthing has begun, right? It's like it's labor, I guess. So like something getting birthed, but it hasn't fully come out yet. So that's what the Fool means to me. Also, I like that this to me reminds me of the sun that's on the genitalia of the Fool, because that kind of goes to the aspect of the birth process, of the fact that the sun is the driving force. In a lot of images that is in this deck, the sun is considered a driving force, which in symbolism that just works anyway. So I like how this is not just a speck, but it could be synonymous with a sun. It could, it could be the birth. It really could mean so much, and this image just means so much to me as the very first card in this deck. Okay. Also, let me show you the backs of my deck. I guess in comparison, I needed a brown because I wanted it to be a little bit like the Thoth Tarot with that. I didn't want any symbolism on here because, to be honest, all of this imagery right here, like take the rosy cross off, a lot of these are all for the suits, and to me that's indicative of Malkuth, the planet of Earth, and all that entails. And so this kind of raw dirt color was important for me to have on my deck. So I don't know, the backs aren't going to be probably in frame, but that's just it. Now we have a black hole here in my deck, but the way that this light, because when light is gone over the event horizon of a black hole, you can't see it. Okay, you really can't. But with photography, the way photography is now, people have been able to generate what they believe is actually happening to the light inside of a black hole and right outside of the event horizon. So, or the accretion disk, I'll say, not the event horizon. I guess I'm going with some sci-fi here. So the Magus card to me is that birth, that it's a creation. There's a creation process, but all of these first majors aren't even manifest yet. They're barely manifest. Okay. And to me, it was very important to have something cosmological to be the essence of these first few cards, because it's all happening outside of our planet. This is happening before our planet. This is the creation process at its core. And I needed something to represent that. And no amount of nature imagery was going to work. It had to be something cosmos related to be what I believe Crowley's vision is. And of course the colors work perfectly for this beautiful blue. Okay. And the line here that has been digitally, this black hole image here, and the light being digitally manipulated, it looks to be the as above, so below. So that was important to me as well, to have this kind of the line. I think that lines are important in the Magus card. I think that the as above, so below is important. And I love that the fact that looking at the Fool and the Magus together, it does look like as soon as light or you or the universe or whatever the source is here is getting birthed, this is what it would look like. It's kind of like there's that egg and it's like coming out of the womb. And this is what this whole Big Bang would look like, right? So that was important to me. All right. Again, I don't know how long I'm going to talk about each of these. Okay, Priestess. In terms of the Thoth Tarot and the Priestess card to me very much is like before birth, the during birth of, this is the actual birth, like something has come out now. And it's about the universe making something of whatever's out there. It's kind of like the birth of a star, basically. In my own terms, the way I was able to come to terms with these two cards, it was almost like the birth of a star. There was nothing, and then whatever the universe found, it kind of took two things and melded it together. Think of, I guess, sacred geometry. And then the Priestess, in terms of consciousness, in terms of birthing, in terms of manifestation, the Priestess represents the veil that is then put over what was birthed, because there has to be that veil and that mystery and that, I guess, the unknown. There has to be an aspect of the unknown that humanity can't be able to, rarely can humanity tap into. So the Priestess card isn't actually an archetype to me. She represents the veil, the unattainable that humanity is always seeking. And we will continue to always seek, because there's that veil that the universe the cosmos have put over certain things. And it's like no amount of advanced technology can we obtain that. Even if we were somehow to meditate every day in nature and really try to understand it, there's always going to be the veil. There's always going to be things that we don't understand. And I think that the Priestess represents that. So it was very important to me to not have, again, like the Fool and the Magus card in my deck, to have absolutely nothing. And it was important to me to have this like sea foam green, which I believe, after looking at this blue, in terms of light and how light would look if we were to veil it, it would be like fog over this blue color. And that's what this color would be. So it kind of all makes sense. And I think that Harris really, I don't know. I know that there's a lot in Kabbalah about colors, and a lot on the Golden Dawn about the colors that are used in this deck. But to me, it just does make sense in terms of color, in terms of birthing, in terms of placing something over this blue, but it be a veil, it would end up being this color. So it made sense to match this seafoam green to the Crowley deck, Crowley Harris deck. Empress. Now, the Empress to me is what is first manifest in this particular deck, okay? You see the seaweed and you see this very oceanic, to me, this oceanic world that the Empress is sitting in. You've got the pelican, but you've got the seaweed and the seaweed that's around the edge of the card. And then you've got the lotus. And then you've got the moons, which to me, putting a moon on the Empress card is almost like this would be a tide card, like the mysteries of the oceans. But again, when I studied the essence, tried to get back down to the crux of the Empress card, it was probably what was first made, how our planet first came about. And what that would have been algae. And it would have been this bacteria world that lived in the trenches of, like, in puddles and on rocks and things like that. And I needed something very kind of watery, but also very dirty looking, but not swamp-like, because it's not a swamp yet. So kind of, clean, but also this watery world that's filled with algae and bacteria as what would have been here first. And that is just, this image was perfect. This image was perfect for the Empress because the colors match up. The blue and the green matched up perfectly. I can actually see the little tiny bits of bacteria and algae in the bottom of this pool. And then these lotus that are, sitting at the top of the water actually look like remind me of the lotus that she's holding. And that was so important to me. So, going backwards, okay, just for a second. So we've got the unmanifest, the light is manifesting, the veil is put on, and then the planet is created. So, kind of going on the creation of the planet, almost Big Bang-esque, I guess you could say. But it was important to me, again, to have the colors present, but also to get down to what I believe the card is saying at its core. And to me, that is a beautiful representation of the very first moments on planet Earth. I think that this represents the sacred place that binds everything together. It's like this water and this water pool here with all the plant life in it, the vegetation in it, is a watery embrace from me as the Empress. And that's a beautiful thing. And then, of course, the next possible step is in the Emperor, or for the Emperor, is the sun. Okay, this driving force. Again, now we had the driving force in the beginning, but it hasn't appeared yet. It wasn't manifest. And this is the first time that the sun is manifesting. Now with water, the only other thing that works in tandem and also as an opposition to water is sunlight. And that's the next possible stage in the Wild Essence is sun. Now I use this Mars type of orangey imagery to represent how the sun is so different than the Empress, but how you need both of these for more creation to come about. You have to have the water and you have to have the sun. So it's like water versus fire. And it's these two forces that are going to be the creation of whatever the planet is going to create. So you have to have both of these forces, the passive and the active. And I think that both of these cards are beautiful together because they're just so indicative of what I believe the Empress and the Empress and the Emperor are saying. Okay, the Hierophant. Now the Hierophant card, as if you've been following me for any time, you know that the Empress, the Hierophant has been one of those cards that I have struggled with in the past. But to me, the essence of the Hierophant is rules, right? So he kind of, to me, plays a role with the priestess, because the priestess, if she's the veil, the unknown here, the what, I guess, representing the unknown, then the Hierophant to me would have to be that place of knowing the rules of the universe. These cosmological rules that the planet and then our galaxy and then galaxies beyond that would have to abide by, right? It's like everything has a set of rules, and humanity has rules, the animal kingdom has rules, the plant life has rules, and they all kind of live by these certain rules, like get water, get sunlight, things like that. I'm just, giving an example. But I believe that the Hierophant at its core represents that. Now, it was important to me to have a mountain here because I think that in terms of the Hierophant card and in terms of rules and what to live by, it's more about looking up at the stars from the planet. How you're going to gain the rules or learn the rules by not looking at where you're at, but actually trying to look at the macrocosm. And I believe that it's a bridge. To get to know the rules, you have to be able to bridge the gap between the macro and the micro. And I think that the Hierophant is personified as that. And so, in terms of nature, he would have to be representative of the mountain. Somewhere where he could go and be the conduit to know the rules, to learn the rules. So that was very important to me. The colors don't match up, but it was important for me to have a mountain with the stars as representing, I guess, the conduit there. Okay, the Lovers. Now, the bee imagery is sacred to me in terms of the Thoth, because we see the bee imagery a lot. We see it in the Empress card even, and then we see it in this card and in the art card. However, I needed something in the Lovers to represent the stage of the marriage before art is art, right? Because all of this is kind of flowing. I needed all of this kind of flow into one another. And therefore, if the bee gaining the pollen, doing the work to putting the work in, there's a lot that has to be done between the Lovers and art for the mixing. But this is like the start of that work. This is the start of the work that you must do to blend. It's for things to blend. Okay, now this, after we've learned all the rules, things have gotten manifest. Now things have to know how to blend to create new things. Okay, because it's not just water and sunlight as with plants. And it's not just eat or be eaten as in the animal kingdom. There's a lot more work involved, and the bee is the perfect representation of that to me. So this is a blend card, and you'll see how I'm going to kind of match, I guess, this in the art card. The Chariot. This is a beautiful, beautiful image of a tunnel at night, okay? But it looks so psychedelic because the essence of the Chariot card to me is the amethyst in the center. This knight, this golden knight, is holding this holy grail and is holding this, what Crowley says is an amethyst. I needed a purple visionary card that would make me think of movement through a tunnel, because I've said this in a lot of videos, like in the beginning of Thoth Thursdays, that behind the Chariot, it very much looks like a Looney Tunes tunnel. And so the Chariot is moving, and then it's like the Sphinxes right here, the four Sphinxes, they're not moving, they're stationary, but it's almost like the Chariot is just going to fly right over them. He's not going to hit them or anything. They're like transparent. They're just there to show what's happening with the zodiac. But anyway, So this is a movement card. And it was really important for me to look at this card and see amethyst movement, I guess you could say. And also I think that the Chariot is confusion at its core. This movement without knowing where you're going, because he's not driving. He's just sitting and he's getting driven, right? And so he has no idea where he's going or if he's going to live. He just knows that if he has to sit in the chariot to transport the amethyst to wherever the hell it's going to go. So that was important to me to represent that confusion, the fact that you're not driving the chariot in this deck, because I know in some you are. Adjustment. Now this was a hard card for me because to me just adjustment isn't exactly a justice card. It's actually a juggle card. This is okay, you need to adjust some things, you need to balance some things in a way that's going to actually work. Now balance, complete balance doesn't exist because everything it's like a seesaw, right? Everything in nature made is a seesaw. There's not actually balance like this. Like this doesn't just happen. And I believe that adjustment is something that's constantly curated. That it's, again, like the Lovers, there's work to be involved for the balance to occur. And there are rules involved. All the cards previous to this are at play. Every single one are at play here. Balance, constantly curating and adjusting each component, weighing out everything. And that's exactly what's happening in this card. Even though I love that the background is like probably a seascape, if I'm being honest, which we don't know. I like how there's this beigey color with the blue because it reminds me of the adjustment card. But it's just about balance doesn't happen in nature. Okay, the Hermit. Look how beautiful this Thoth Hermit is. It's like I love this deck so much. Let's see. Now, it was important for this Hermit card to be a field of wheat because of the wheat in the background. And this color here of a storm approaching, but a storm approaching that isn't actually going to hit you. The storm it's like going to go around you. And I don't know, for some reason, it was like this image was the Hermit. It was the storm on the horizon. Maybe it's night, but there's also light. There's also wheat, right? The cultivation that we had in the adjustment card has come to fruition. And now we're kind of out in the wheat field figuring it all out. I think that in this state of the Hermit and in this wheat field, we've looked at all the previous cards and there's like a uniting of spirit and the physical in this card. And I like how there's a line there too to represent spirit and the physical. The spirit and the mundane, I guess you could say. Just like there's a line in here. Because I believe that is what the Hermit card in Thoth represents, is the line between, almost like the Hierophant. They could be brothers. I think because where the Hierophant is the conduit between spirit and man, this is spirit and yourself. It's more personal, right? There's a solitude within yourself. And when you notice those things, then you can start noticing it outside of you. But you have to do it first within yourself. Figure out that balance within yourself. So it was important for me to have the line and these two forces within the Hermit card because of the way the Crowley Hermit is set up. Okay, the wheel. Whew, the wheel is my birth card. So it was very important for me to have something that represented exactly what I think the wheel is. Now, for me, the wheel is, of course, it's all the keywords that you would put on the Wheel of Fortune. Change, fortune, going with the flow, okay? But to me, especially with this being a Jupiter card, people often associate Jupiter with luck, okay? But what if you believe that you make your own luck? What if you believe in fate and destiny as I do? Then the wheel is ripples. The wheel, in terms of nature, if we were to try to actually go out and find the wheel in nature, it would be a ripple. It would be what you put in, what your work, the work that you put in is going to manifest out into all the rest of it, all the rest of the things. Whether you're going with the flow, whether you're stagnant, whatever the case, you're even in an absence, there is a presence of an absence. So even if you don't do anything, something is still happening around you. So even if you choose to stand still, something is still rippling around you in the presence of that absence. And to me, all of that represents the ripple effect. And this is a beautiful, beautiful representation of a ripple here. I mean, I could have done a huge ripple or a tiny ripple, you know? But this is the work. And this is the work that's pushed back. So even if this stays right here, this still has to come down. And it's just like, it's all what you're putting in, what you're not putting in, all of it makes a difference in terms of the wheel card. Now the lust, this was, at first it was confusing as to why this image ended up being the lust card for me. But to me, the lust is not a strength card. It is a lust card. It is a joy in strength exercised, as Crowley writes. That's a feeling. That's a feeling that when you put all that work in, or even if you choose not to, it's within the choices that you make that you feel that joy that you have, whether or not you've chose to do something or not about something. You stand by those choices. This freedom about choice isn't whether to make one or not. It's when you do make a decision and you've made a choice about something and you feel in your soul that you've made the right decision about whether or not to act or whether or not to exercise strength, okay? Because like I said, there's a presence with the absence as well. That lust is a feeling. It is exactly what it says. It is a lust. And to me, I am copywriting the phrase cotton candy skies because to me, that in nature, that would be the ultimate joyful moment. That nature would, it got its paintbrushes out and it showed us its glory in a cotton candy sky. That would almost be like the universe telling us that we painted the sky and look how beautiful it is. You know, it's just like one of those feel good moments that I have. And so to me, lust is a feeling. Plus the colors match up pretty, I mean, I really liked how the colors matched up. It was important to me to have purple because of what the background of this, you know, beautiful seven-headed beast and the maiden are, but then also red to represent the cup of abominations, and pink, like this pinky color, like what we're going to see in the star. It's almost like this is the cup of abominations is the first time we see life-giving liquids and the choices that those liquids give us in terms of milk and blood, in terms of alchemy and things like that. So it was important for me to see all those colors. Okay, Hanged Man. Look at this. I needed something upside down, but this is a baptism, okay, to me. Spiritual baptism. But you're not in the water. But the water is there. because it's down here. So he's hanging above the water. And so there's a reason he's hanging above the water, which I'll get to in the next card. But the hangman is hanging above the water as a moment right before death. There is a moment of suspension right before you cut the rope that you're suspended from to plunge into the depths. Okay? This is an absolute crucial moment before death. So that's the only thing the hangman is representing here is the suspension, the pause, the hesitation before we have made it to the transformation stage. You have to be suspended first, right? You don't just get pushed off the cliff because this is happening internally. There's nothing inside of you that's just going to push you off the cliff. So the suspension is necessary. And I needed something that looked like we were hanging above water, like from a bungee cord. Like that's what it would look like. Or you're falling, right? But you have jumped. You haven't gotten pushed. Nothing's happening, but you're still at that moment between you in the air and then you in the water. There's that moment there, that in-between moment. That's what the hangman represents to me in the Thoth. Now, look at this. Now, when you finally let go of that bungee, or you take your dagger and you slice the bungee and you fall to the depths, you end up where? You end up in the realm of death. And in the Crowley deck, that is the ocean. That is the bottom of the ocean. That is water. And that's Scorpio, you know? But you plunge, like you're going to land somewhere right here, right? Because, perspective. You land somewhere right here into this. I love how these are almost the same color. And then just like in this card, you've got like the top versus the bottom. But it's like here, this is the top and this is the bottom. So it's all kind of mixed together because I believe that they're brother cards. They mirror moments before something happens. It's like how quick that can happen or how slow that can happen. It can go either way. But the fact that they look so similar, it was important to me. Because you have no idea when you're in this stage that you're going to meet this at the bottom when you dive in, when you jump in. So it was important to me for these to look a lot alike. And this realm just looks so like this card to me. It was so crazy. The seaweed and this school of fish here representing, of course, the fish that we see in the Crowley deck. The only thing that this image, I'll say, didn't have was the bubbles, like these bubbles. But a lot of people say that these are bubbles, but to me, they're not bubbles. It's octaves. They're octaves, which is going on to more of the sound and the vibration of death. This decomposition process, which isn't even decomposition yet, because you haven't died. Even at this stage of death, you haven't actually decomposed. It's just the moment of death. And nothing happens in the moment of death. So, I guess in terms of humanity, I'll say, even if something dies in the plant world, it doesn't wilt right away. So, it's this is the moment of death, but nothing in terms of alchemy has happened. Nothing in terms of decomposition has happened. That moment of peace. This is peace. That we've made the decision. We've cut the bungee cord from the hangman. We're still kind of on that high, on the lust of the the high of the lust card when we reach this realm. And we're just kind of swimming around, waiting on the decomposition, waiting on something to eat us, or the eagle to dive down and get us. All right, now art. As I said before, I'm going to let me pull out the lovers here. Here's the lovers. Now, what would you think that the art would represent if it mirrors the lovers card? honey. The work that the bees have put in has now come to fruition, and it's honey. Okay? The bees work, there's a blending involved, and then the fruition of that is honey. And it was important to me to have those mirror each other, even though technically the colors in art don't match up to this. The blending is so separate in the Lover's card that I needed something to represent the actual mushing, the mush of art, what art represents at its core. And that is definitely the honey that the bees have made. Which is just a beautiful image anyway. This is like this golden honeycomb here. Oh. Now, the devil. Now, for me, what I kept going back to with the devil card, even though this has so much symbolism inside of it, was the web-like things in the background of this card. And it just always made me think of getting stuck in a spider web. But a dense spider web. The ones that you run into and you can't get it off. It's sticky, right? And so I used a cobweb type of an image here that happens everywhere. Out in the forest, I found them right next to water. I mean, they happen everywhere that spiders are. But it was important to me to have a web, something you could get stuck in, that the devil card in the Crowley deck makes me think of. It makes me think of all these strings of web back here that you're getting stuck to. And it's getting out of all that. It's trying to get out of the spider web. It's a beautiful, beautiful card. I love the devil. The Tower. Now, in most nature tarot decks, that I've seen, the Tower is represented by lightning. But it was important to me to see a storm, but also the light of the sun, which to me would represent the driving force that would make me think of the eye here. Because again, we could have gone so much in terms of nature imagery for the Tower card. But in terms of the Crowley deck, this is a fight for clarity within the storm. In the moment of a storm and the lightning hits, you have to be able to have the hope there. The hope lingers in the bottom of the box, right? But without that, which we do see the hope in the star card, but I needed the sun as representing the eye of Shiva here, or the eye of the divine, eye of source, whatever you want to call it. Plus a nod back to lust. Here's the lion serpent thing here, and then the dove, which is Venus. But there's so much happening in this card, okay, for one. But the storm descends, lightning strikes, but the sun is still here as the light of the divine. Now, it's so important to have both present. Even if I did try to get the colors to match up in terms of imagery, this is what I came up with. But I did like the blackness of the storm and the verdant green, right? Even if you can't really tell on camera, but this verdant green, and then this play here between sun and lightning. These two driving forces trying to find the hope in the mouth of the storm. So, the star. Again, hope lingers in the bottom of Pandora's box. Now, again, I've seen a lot of nature-based decks where imagery like this would be in the Wheel of Fortune card. But the Wheel of Fortune card, as it plays, could be changed and all that. It's not a cosmic level change in the wheel. It's an internal. Just like because it's right after the Hermit card. It's an internal thing. Internal flux and flow. But for the star, it's more cosmic. It's the swirl of the universe, the swirl of everything, not just out in the universe like we see in the universe card, but the macro and the micro. The vibration and the nature of the spin is in the star card. This is an inevitability card for me in terms of the Crowley deck. This is an inevitability of change, but on a grander scale. And so it was important to me to see this. If we could see the twirl, then that's what it would look like. I love how photography has come about. Plus, aren't these colors pretty darn spot on? I mean, love it. Love it. And then the moon is basically a path, a moon, and it's foggy. In terms of symbolism, I just needed to be on a path at night, but it be extremely foggy, because there's a murkiness to the Thoth moon card that isn't, of course, present in the Rider decks that I've seen, the Rider-Waite-Smith decks that I've seen. There's not a murkiness. There's not a confusionary aspect to the cards like in this deck. And so, bare minimum, this is a foggy path. Barely visible. What do you do? Wait for Anubis to show up. Okay, that's what you do. The sun. I loved picking this image out. Oh, I got something on them. I loved picking this image out because I needed a grassy hill and I needed the sun out. But to me, a grassy hill with the sun and the clouds, the way that they're moving, and it made me think of a playful nature of the universe. That these little fairy twin things here are playing free. They are completely free because they've gotten their wings, right? The twins from the Lover's card has worked, has brought out their, has done all they're supposed to do to make the honey. And then once the honey is done, there's this freedom that they have, right? Not that the bees are the thing here. I'm just trying to go with what the sun card means. Is a playful freedom. And freedom, oftentimes, freedom isn't attainable. Freedom is gained by two things. And I'm going to try to leave the actual quote from that. I read this in a book. And I will try to leave the real quote below. But basically she says, freedom is only attained by two things. Faith or exhaustion. You got to have one or the other. You got to be ready to be exhausted by the work that you put in to be free, because you'll never get rid of the work, or just to have faith. You have to have either one of those, or sometimes both. And that's what this card represents. Of course, a sunny field is what that represents to me. The Aeon. The Aeon had to be a sunset, but a sunset that was almost miraged, because the Aeon is the turning of time. This is a time card for me because, Aeon. But there's so much going on in the Aeon card. It's almost like, phew, the sun has set. We can begin again. And it's almost like all the work that was done, there are broader perspectives that we must take into account now. And let go of things that we once held onto to be able to actually let the sun set. So there had to be like a mirage there, almost like you couldn't tell whether this was a sunrise or a sunset. Because I think that right there, not knowing whether it's a sunrise or sunset, is the epitome of the Aeon card. You have no idea when a new aeon's going to come about, but you'll know it when you get there, right? Plus, the colors tend to really match up. I loved this like crimson. This crimson color was important to me as well in terms of the Aeon card, because that's down here at the crux of the card. And then finally, we get to the universe. The universe is such an important card to me that I needed it to look like the Fool. I needed it to look like, in terms of the cosmos, in terms of the universe as a whole, we could see all the other cards in the major arcana inside of it. And that is what I chose. The eye. I love how this is in the shape of an eye. Plus, the colors were so perfect. Oh my God, Des. The colors were perfect for this. This is a galaxy card in the shape of an eye. It just was so perfect for my Crowley universe card that I just could not have chosen a better card or a better image. I loved it. How this, I don't know, womb-like shape, this egg-like shape, that this eye imagery was so important. I mean, on the surface, the colors are so, just tack all my cards down. The colors were so important, but also the shape and the fact that this is the universe card, but also for it to be out in space, and that if this imagery were, like, just say like this were to like implode on itself, that we would be back here, or we would be back to this. We would implode to see the whole to be birthed out again. To yet again be back inside the birth canal. And that was what was important to me as well. Okay, well, we will look at the suits of my deck really, really soon. I wanted to get these videos out quickly instead of Thoth Thursday like videos. So I'll probably do some of these back to back. Just to get them out there so that y'all guys can share in it with me. So I hope you enjoy. Some details will be below if you want to check the deck out. And I hope to see all of you again when we explore more of my Wild Essence Thoth Tarot. Much love.